Okay, it's a quick video for myself, Harvey Goldman. No cuts, no edits, no filters, and no hair. So today's video, I want to really jump into one about how we got to where we are. And I don't mean human beings through the ages. I mean in terms of the economy and the absolute mess that we're currently in. How did it get here? How did it get this bad? Where really did it all begin? So if you live in Britain, this might explain why your money never goes anywhere. It'll probably explain why things feel absolutely broken, and also why we seem to be lurching from crisis to crisis to crisis, and somehow how you and I are still the people that are paying for it. So let's start at the beginning. Really, we're talking about the 20s. Britain had just come out of World War I. So after World War I, the first mistakes were made. Britain tried to continue to act like a global superpower. It tried to act like a global empire again. We brought back the gold standard, which tied our money to gold, which, to be fair, sounds relatively smart, okay? But it meant that prices stayed high and the interest rates went up. Businesses struggled. People lost their homes, their businesses, and their jobs in the process. So that should have been the first warning. But then came the 1929 crash. The government refused to budge. It was only when we finally ditched gold standards in 1931, I believe it was, that things really started to improve by any measure. But then it was all too late. The damage had been done. For many working families, that was the first real money mess up of the modern era. So then you move forward past World War II, you've got the pound falling, end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. So by the 1960s, Britain was basically falling behind. So in 1967, the government then made a big move. They devalued the pound by 14%. So that made British goods effectively cheaper abroad. It also made everything that was imported much more expensive. Prices went back up again. So then came the early 70s, which was the first, I guess, real big property boom. Certainly that was when my parents were able to really buy their first home. You had dodgy loans, you had banks lending like mad, and when it all collapsed in 73, the Bank of England bailed out some of those banks, and I'm sure that sounds fairly familiar, and if it does, well, it should. It's not the first time it's happened. So then you flash forward to 1992, you've got Black Wednesday. So basically, Britain tried to keep the pound in line with the rest of Europe. And bearing in mind, at that point, the euro hadn't come in. It was still pesetas, potatoes, and francs. The pound was at that point too strong, and speculators knew it. So on Black Wednesday, which I think was the 16th of September, the government spent billions trying to defend the pound, and they lost. Markets forced us to pull out of Europe's money system. It was an absolute national disaster and a massive embarrassment. But funnily enough, it worked. The pound dropped, exports rose, interest rates came down, and I guess sometimes being forced to admit you were wrong probably helps. So you move into the 2008 crash. Now that's the big one that most people of my age remember. It's known as the big one. In 2007, Northern Rock basically collapsed. It ended up on its arse. And why? Simply because it borrowed money in risky ways. When the global market froze, it couldn't pay it back. People panicked. They queued outside banks. They were desperate to pull their money. It was the first run on a UK bank in over 150 years, and it was very well publicised. It was all over the news. I remember this distinctly. Royal Bank of Scotland, one of the biggest banks in the world at the time. Its boss, I believe it was Fred Goodwin, took huge risks. He basically bought another bank, as you do. Why not? So overstretched, and when things went south, the government had no choice. 45 billion of taxpayers' money, of my money, of your money, went into saving RBS. Fred got sacked, as he should have done, but we got the bill. In total, the government pumped nearly 137 billion into the financial system to stop the whole thing from collapsing. So this is it should be a casual warning. It should have been a casual warning of the shape of things to come. All through the 2010s, we were trying to rebuild. After the crash, things seemingly got better. They had to change. The government tightened rules. Banks were told to hold more money. There were big spending cuts. There was austerity. All of that followed, especially cuts to welfare, to councils, to public services. That's what people mean when they talk about austerity. It's basically tightening those belt buckles, pulling your straps in, and just battening down the hatches. And to be fair, we probably need to do that again. The Bank of England printed hundreds of billions of pounds. It's called quantitative easing. I'm sure you've heard that thrown about recently. And it's to keep the economy alive. Interest rates stayed rock bottom for nearly a decade. Then, of course, COVID hit, and that flipped the script. Now, you go on to today's picture, 2025, right now. So here we are. NatWest is finally no longer owned by the government. It took 17 years to sell it off. Basically, taxpayers lost over 10 billion in the process, but we did avoid a total meltdown. Right now, inflation is still too high, around 3 to 4%, if you believe the figures that are peddled by the media. Some observationists cite it being a lot higher, sort of more like 10, 15%. But let's go with the figure that we've got from the media, 3 to 4%. It's still bad. Prices are rising faster than wages, we know this. Debt is sky high. Nearly 100% of what we actually make as a country goes towards paying debt. The interest payments alone take £1 in every 25 of what the UK makes. There's growth just about, but not much, certainly not enough. Productivity is low. Many jobs still don't pay enough. In fact, most jobs still don't pay enough. The younger generation, I mean, why should they even feel like they need to bother? They're earning less than their parents did at the same age, even 30 years on. It's not progression, it's stagnation. So where did it all go wrong? Well, it seems like every time we've had a crisis, we've made the same mistake. We've bailed out the people at the top when we shouldn't have done. We should have jailed the people at the top. We've expected everybody else to deal with the damage. Everyone else, me, you, the working people, deal with the fallout. If there's bad lending, the government steps in. Property bubble, government steps in. Bank goes bust, government steps in. Let's just let these things fail and jail the people responsible for making the bad choices. Much of it is criminal as well. Who pays for it? You, me, anyone earning. Anybody earning normal wages. Public services get squeezed, we suffer. Wages stay frozen, we suffer. Inflation eats the savings, we suffer. And while the banks may have recovered, our trust and faith in them definitely hasn't. So what comes next? Well, there are serious threats ahead. You've got debts, and with so much debt owed, even a small amount can be dangerous. Even a small interest rate rise can be deadly. You've got productivity. We work long hours. We get less done than in other countries, and that keeps the wages low. Our productivity is being stifled. Now, AI may change that, but it's going to also cost jobs. AI and automation, technology is changing everything. Some jobs will vanish entirely. There will be new ones that pop up, and that may help, but it probably won't happen fast enough. And who wins in that interim period in the middle? Nobody. It's going to be a no man's land where jobs are lost and people are struggling to retrain or reaccommodate themselves to find newly created roles. We've got climate and energy crises, and if we don't invest properly, we'll fall behind. Again, bad weather, floods, energy shocks, they all hit the economy super hard. Couple that with proxy wars that our government seems quite happy to be funding overseas. And it's just an absolute storm. It's a storm in a teacup. It really is. I don't see that there's a simple solution to it. I mean, if we could, how could we fix it? I mean, from a jobs point of view, we need to invest in ourselves, in training and in tech. We need to help workers shift and pivot to better paid modern jobs. We need to keep the bloody banks in check. We need to regulate AI. We need to stress test absolutely everything. Don't wait for it to collapse. Let's predict the collapse and prepare for it, and then, protect ourselves against it. Let's focus on real productivity, like digital infrastructure, because that's where things are going, like it or not. Focus on transport, focus on green energy. All of these things that should hopefully bring more jobs, better paid jobs, and also better infrastructure and lower energy costs. And then maybe, just maybe, could the government please stop gambling with the economy to score political points? Here's looking at you, Ed Miliband. There aren't really any quick fixes, but the longer we wait, the worse the fallout is going to be. The UK has a pedigree of surviving every financial disaster only just by adapting. But we've also repeated the same mistakes over and over again, helping the powerful, punishing the public, and then moving on without learning. So this time we've got tools, we've got AI, we've got tech, we've got a choice. We can either build an economy that works for everyone or keep rebuilding the same broken one. So what do you think? Basically, I don't know what the fix is. As I said before, I'm not an economist. I just do a bit of research, make videos, and have a little handle on what's going on, and that's it. But what are your thoughts on this? Drop it in the comments. I'm really keen to find out. How much of this have you experienced in your lifetime? I was obviously born at the end of the 70s, so I do remember the 1992 problems in terms of housing. I do remember the 2008 big one, the financial crash, and obviously through COVID and everything else. But really keen to find out what your perspective on this is. So go ahead, let me know. YouTube's going to put another video up there. Like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz, and there'll be another video tomorrow. Goldman, peace out.